Hello, am I audible? Prashant sir?
Yes, sir.
Prashant sir, welcome to
Please
session.
go on, please. I'm
Prashant
there.
sir? Yes,
Namaskar,
yes sir,
Sapna
yes
sir.
sir.
Welcome. Okay.
Sir, one minute. Yes, you are presenter. You are, yes.
Yeah, just a minute. Can you see the slide?
No sir, not yet.
I have shared.
Mm, so slide is not getting shared right now. No, just showing you are sharing the content, but what content you are sharing, it is not visible.
Now,
Yeah, it's principal
Yes, yes.
component analysis applications. Yeah,
Applications.
yes.
yeah.
It is visible.
Mohita madam, start with the intro.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, all. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's second session of FDP. In this session, we are presenting image processing, PCA and its application, presented by Dr. Prashant Partakke, sir. Small introduction of Prashant, sir. Dr. Prashant Partakke is working as an associate professor at COEP Pune. He is having 20 years teaching experience and 10 years research experience. He has completed his bachelor's from Shivaji University in 1993, master's from University of Pune in 1998, and doctorate in E&C engineering from University of Pune. Sir is instructed courses and following major areas and their associated labs for PG subjects are embedded system design, RTOS, embedded architecture, image processing, and pattern recognition. For UG, computer networks, advanced microprocessor, and information theory and coding. Sir is guiding last year projects since last 14 years. The quality of his research is evidenced from his publication and the journal and the conferences of the high impact factor. Additional responsibilities. Dr. Prashant is the Secretary of Corporate Society Department Undergraduate Program Committee Member, Department Purchase Committee Member, working as a Principal Investigator of Modern Embedded Computing Lab sponsored by Intel. Sir is introduced and teaching a course on Advanced Embedded Architecture at PG. He is a faculty advisor for the MTech students, and now I request Prashant sir to start his session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Amruta. Good morning, dear participants from various. Is it audible? From various colleges, industry experts.
Yes, sir.
Right.
You are audible.
I
Sir,
know
can you please
yes.
raise your voice, sir?
I'm wearing headphone.
Okay.
Yeah, I am participant. I can witnessed many, sessions. So I know what are the
Okay.
difficulties.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, you are audible
Okay,
right
yeah.
now. So, no problem.
Yes.
You can go ahead, sir.
Try to hold like this then. Yeah. Okay. So I know that there are many faculty participants from various colleges. There are many industry experts, right? But I don't know how many are really attending at this moment. So I hope that you all are attending and will be addressing to you all. It's my pleasure to address to you. The topic, and before beginning, let me, and this customary thanks. Let me first thank all the organizers of this FDP, especially Sapra sir, Anil Karwankan sir, and his team. So I'm giving me opportunity to talk to you, participate in this FDP, and so on. With this customary thanks, let me go ahead. So the topic of today's lecture or today's session for 1.5 hours is principal component analysis and applications. Right. So remember the word principal. It is not principle. It is principal. Right. So spelling is Principal. In hurry we write PLE. So it is not PLE, it's PAL. So principal component analysis and applications. I hope that reaching to you. In case of any difficulty, please let me know. Through this chats or whatever. Right? I just can.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
now
Sure.
thing is mini session. Thank you, Anil. You are there. Subclass is not there. I know. Subclass leaves immediately.
Sir,
Is he there?
Yeah,
He's
yeah, I
not
am
responding.
available. Sir is also available.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sarvankar asked me to mute. That's why
Yes,
I'm
sir.
mute.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
I myself, where with old friends, I know. What this first call. So, yes, uh, all these sessions, it is it's known that we should not, whenever if we really want to do real research, we should run from expressions, handling expressions, understanding expressions, and implementing expressions, modifying expressions. So as we can have a fruitful research. And in my opinion, in general, and as expressed by earlier session, presenters, that somehow we tend to skip expressions, right? And thing is, in these presentations also, or in the sessions or everywhere, the thing is, generally there is a trend is that, most of the information is being passed, right? And then somehow you are asked to learn expressions, right? And go through all the difficult tasks, right? The thing is, this session, right, out here, right, is kind of a bit different, wherein, on every slide, right, you will see, expressions, and we shall try to understand these expressions, right? And this principal component analysis is, mathematically heavy topic, right? So let us try to make it, easier to understand. And then once we understand, we really understand importance of this principal component analysis topic, and which is now a kind of tool. Yesterday, Gokre sir talked about wavelet as a tool, right? So now principal component analysis as a tool, we shall understand. Right. So before using these tools, right, before using this as a tool, let us understand background, right, mathematical treatment behind this, and once we understand, effectivity or the usefulness of this understanding is, you can really develop very good models, right, like which can give wonderful results, right, when you really go for some applications, right? So with this initial background, I have plenty of things to cover, right? So we will not waste time, and we shall go ahead. And the topics that I am going to cover over here today, right, in this, I will try to cover in this 1.5 hour session is, when very briefly we will see why PCA, right? Then we will prepare background for PCA in the form of understanding eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Remember that, I used to also make a mistake that I used to leave a space between eigen and values, right? So don't leave space. So one word, eigenvalues, eigenvectors, right? And then we shall have eigenvalue decomposition, right? So this is the background for PCA. We shall understand this, and then we can go for PCA and its interpretations, right? So there are three interpretations. There are many. I have heard too many speakers talking about PCA. Jokingly, they tell that there are many interpretations, 9 to 10 interpretations, right? We are going to discuss out here only 3 interpretations, which are very important. And once we understand these 3 interpretations, we shall really understand importance of PCA, right? By the way, PCA will come in by PCA. We'll complete this. What we are going to discuss today. And the thing is, PCA, the highlight of this session is PCA and its interpretation. That is the highlight, right? So don't miss that. And if you want to understand that, don't miss eigenvalue decomposition. Want to understand that, don't miss earlier topic, right? And then applications of PCA, we shall understand. We shall, have a presentation. And then the next highlight of this session is demonstration utilizing PCA in Python, right? So we shall understand that, we shall do it, right? I shall be running the code at my end and displaying results of those, executions. And then if, time permits, there is always fail-safe kind of arrangement from my side. One topic, one very important topic, which is referred as pinnacle, highest level of linear algebra, which is singular value decomposition. If time permits, I will touch upon this, and then we shall conclude. I think that my voice is reaching, my video is reaching, slides are there, and slides are in sync with I'm talking. Yeah, in case there are any problems, let me know, right? Yeah.
No issue, sir. You can continue.
Yes, Anil. Okay, so let me talk about why PCA. Now, this PCA is very, very old technique, right? 100 years back, it was, or more than 100 years, it was introduced, right? More formally, it is also known as KL transform or Hartelling transform, right? So it's a 100 years or more than 100 years of story, right? Really, the PCA has been, the boost has, taken up after in the later half of 20th century, mainly as, we all know the reason, because of introduction of computing platform, availability of computing platform in abundance. And nowadays, there's no issue. Computing platform, memory, data, so there are no issues nowadays. The thing is, jokingly they say that industry experts, if they are there and they are listening, the first task that they do is apply PCA on whatever data that they gather, right? That is the importance of this PCA. So we shall, I'm preparing background so that you are eager to, I also know that there are many experts out here, many experienced faculty members who know PCA, who have used PCA and who know importance of PCA, but still for, new users or new, researchers, this might be really helpful. So thing is, what is PCA? PCA is transforming input data points, which are multi-dimensional. Let's say assume dimensions n, right, to lower dimension k. So there is transformation of data points having certain dimension to lower dimension, right? That is k. And here k could be much less than n, right? So this PCA is that transform, which transforms data point from some higher dimension to lower dimension, right? We shall understand why this is to be done, right? How this is to be done, and thing is what are the benefits and so on, right? One of the important benefits or thing is it is this PCA could be used. The importance of PCA is for better visualization, right? So remember that whenever number of dimensions increase, right, there is a problem of visualization, right? So we have to have part visualization. Let's say we can have a 2D visualization or 3D visualization at most, right? Keeping all other dimensions and their values fixed and changing, right, at certain intervals. Right? We cannot have all variables contributing and then, displaying all those data points. It is not possible, right? So thing is, if number of dimensions get reduced, we can use it for, and we can have a better visualization, right? The thing is, this is very, trivial, trivial to understand, right? We can have 1D plot or 2D plots or 3D plots. We can visualize, we can understand, right? And then we can deduce upon, we can infer upon looking at point. Or we can think of some model. We can see the trends out there, right? And then we can come up with some model, right? So I think is one of the important steps in designing model is, you visualize the points, all the data points, and dimensions are reduced. We can visualize it properly, and then we can model it and achieve, let's say, whatever classification or regression or some other things. Right? As I said, this dimensionality reduction is going to lead to compression, right? And compression is very, very important, right? We know all the bandwidths and so on. There's a crunch of bandwidth. It is, all are, at home, all are using network, and there's a problem of bandwidth, right? So we need to compress the data and then transmit it over the, right? So that is very, very important thing. The last one is, previous speaker has talked about CBIR, content-based image retrieval, right? Where, thing is, let's say we want to retrieve faces of human beings, right? And alike faces, similar faces, right? Now there can be lots of changes, right, in the faces, and still we want to extract, right? So thing is, in original dimensions, the data points, but whenever we transform it, the data points may come together, and then we will have, I mean, more accurate, more meaningful CBIR, right? Again, we shall understand this by using some similarity in the transform data, right? We can have very good, I mean, accurate CBIR, right? So thing is, there are many applications, and as I said just now, industry persons, right? Whenever they collect data, whenever they have data, right, and whenever data is multi-dimensional, there are more and more dimensions, right? The tendency is apply PC. It's like that. Right? Don't worry about it. Blindly apply PC. That is the situation. Right? Now, thing is here. I mean, all the three slides. I mean, all this presentation is over. Right? I'm going to switch to a new presentation, right? Wherein I have been exposed to this course a couple of years back. This course was on deep learning, and this course was conducted by Professor Mitesh M. Kapra. He is from IIT Madras, right? And he has taught this, I mean, in his course. And the slides which he had given, right, are wonderful. Right? These are beautiful slides, right? How the slides are to be prepared. If, I mean, some of the experienced faculty members or experts out here, right, who knows PCA can take away this point, right? That how the slides are to be prepared, how the mathematics is to be put on the slide, right? And how uniformly and how step by step, right? All these analytical expressions are to be put on these slides so that things becomes easier for learner, right? Remember that it is not that how effective we are teaching, right? How effective the learner is learning is important, right? So from that viewpoint, I mean, this thing is, I mean, I have got these, I mean, these are best slides in my view, and then I need not prepare another, I mean, set of slides and present you for that sake, right? So thing is, I am acknowledging that these are the slides prepared by Professor Kapra from IIT Madras, and I'm using his slides and will be understanding, right, PCA in detailed manner. Right? I'm a participant also. So moment moment the session starts, immediately question comes in mind: how many slides are there? Right? Nothing is, and then when it is going to over and so on. Right? Nothing is. There are 60 slides. Right? Don't worry about this number 315. If you see, these are there are through there are animations. Right? So it's not 315 slides. There are only 60 slides, and then we shall understand this topic in detailed manner over this 1.5 hour. Right. Okay, so the first, as I said, till this point, everything is fine until.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Continue.
Yes.
Left, okay.
Yes,
okay.
Sir. Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So this is, I mean, it's kind of beacons. Beacons I'm sending. So that we need to send beacons. Right? Because no feedback, right? So I have to send beacons, and then I have to get acknowledgement, so that, I mean, everything is fine. We can go ahead, right?
Yes,
is it
sir.
fine, Anil?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah. Thanks. Okay, so let us talk very briefly about eigenvalues and eigenvectors. I know once again there are experienced faculty members attending this FDP. This topic you might be in, but let us understand briefly and go ahead. Yeah. So think of this. There's a two-dimensional data point, which is X over here, right? Which has got values 1 and 3. So this belongs to R2, right? R is the two-dimensional space having real values. I mean, the values out here are integer, but it can take any value like 1.1, 3.3, like that, right? So let us consider a vector which belongs to R2. As I said, I mean, from this is a very, very focused topic, right? I am not going to do too many things, too many applications, too many topics. It is just a focused topic, principal component analysis, right? So what I want is I desire that you attain all these, I mean, this entire session very carefully and very seriously. And I mean, thing is, if I somehow, appeal you to have, a notebook with you so that you can note down something, right? And then you can refer back once again whenever we want it. I also know that the organizers have not distributed notebooks and right? But you can take one, you can, and then take on all whatever important, right? So thing is, think of a vector x which belongs to R2. Think of a transformation matrix A which is 2 by 2. If I do A into x, if I multiply A into x, what's going to happen? What has happened? This is the original vector. I hope that whatever pointer that I am referring to is also visible to you, right? Yes, Anil. Pointer, you can see the pointer. Anil, are
Yes,
you
sir.
there?
Mahesh here.
Can you see the Mahesh? Can
Yes,
you
yes,
see
yes,
the
sir,
pointer
yes.
on the
yes, sir. We
slide?
are seeing.
Yes.
Yes, it's
Okay,
available.
beacon. Beacon, I will come anytime. Okay. So thing is, think of this vector x. What has happened to vector x? Upon, carrying out this a into x operation, the vector, two things have happened to the vector. Vector's direction has been changed. It was directing in this direction. Now it is changed to this direction. And then vector got elongated, right? So these two things are going to happen whenever we multiply matrix E, right, with a vector x. And of course, dimension should match. That you all know, right? So thing is, the vector gets scaled and the vectors rotate also. Now there are some vectors. Like think of this vector x. Once again, this vector x belongs to R2, right? And if I now multiply, what's going to happen, right? The multiplication result is going to be 3 by 3, right? And what has happened is the resultant vector is this blue one, which is elongated, right? So only scaling has happened, right? Is direction changed? Not, right? So there are certain vectors which are like peculiar for a matrix, right? So for a matrix, there are certain vectors whose direction doesn't change, right? Only scaling happens. Scaling happens along this direction, or maybe the vector direction is reverse. Doesn't matter, right? But the vector direction, even though it is reverse, we say that direction is not changed. It's a collinear vector, right? Direction is not changed, right? So these vectors are special vectors, and these vectors are called as eigenvectors. So these are eigenvectors, right? This value 3 over here is a eigenvalue, right? So eigenvalue of this matrix is an eigenvector is 1 1, right? So this is an eigenvector, right? So these are eigenvectors, and then in general, more formally, what do we get is if we multiply, if the result of multiplication of a into x, I'm highlighting this portion, right? I once again hope that it is, available. It got highlighted on your screen, right? So this a into x is equal to lambda x, right? So here this vector x got only scaled where lambda is a scalar, right? X is a vector, A is a matrix, n by n, right? In the beginning, we are going to consider all square matrices, right? So let us have a square matrix n by n. If we multiply this square matrix by a vector, and if the result happens to be lambda into x, right, the vector x is called as eigenvector of matrix A, and lambda is corresponding eigenvalue, right? And you all are doing this, I really know it, right? But for the sake of preparing background, I'm emphasizing this, right? So what is so special about eigenvectors? We shall understand. Look at the slides, look at the throws, look at the like analytical expressions and so on, right? So this is the way the slides are to be prepared and to be presented. So thing is, there are several properties. I mean, these eigenvectors and eigenvalues are very, very useful in many applications. Right? One area has been quoted out here, which is spectral graph theory, and then you can really find out structure of the graph by looking into eigenvalues and eigenvectors of adjacency matrix or Laplacian matrix, which correspond to a graph. Right? We will not go to those details. The thing is, we are going to understand importance of eigenvalues and eigenvectors from with the help of two examples, two cases. And one example, the first example is very interesting example. We shall, I mean, briefly tell it out, and then we will go ahead. For example, consider a campus where there are two types of foods which are served, which is a Chinese food, Mexican food. Right, and let's say there are total K1 plus K2 students on the campus, right? And on day 0, K1 students eat Chinese food and K2 students eat Mexican food, right? And of course, I mean, these are restaurants available in the campuses, right? And nobody eats in the mess, right? The thing is, what will happen is, I mean, this is the initial scenario. We have two states. Now these restaurants are states, right? Where we have on day 0, K1 students, some K1 students eat Chinese and some K2 students eat Mexican, right? So initial state V0 on 0th day, what we have is, we have a vector K1 and K2 representing this scenario, right? Let's also assume that now this is the younger generation and it is very, very difficult to predict their behavior, right? So let's assume that on subsequent day I, a fraction P of students who ate Chinese food on day I minus 1 continue to eat Chinese food, right? On the day I, and 1 minus P shift to Mexican food, right? Similarly, same is the case with Mexican, I mean, students who ate Mexican food, Q will continue and 1 minus Q will shift to Chinese food, right? To represent this scenario, let's say from V0, from this, I mean, state vector, right? The next state vector V1 would be P will continue, a P fraction of K1 will continue to eat Chinese, right? And 1 minus Q from K2 fraction will add to Chinese, I mean, food, right? And 1 minus P which leaves Chinese food, right? This fraction of K1 will add to K into Q2. So on the next day, we have V1, and then V1 would be, I can separate this into multiplication by a matrix and a vector, right? So this matrix should be P and 1 minus Q, and 1 minus P and Q, and multiplying vector is K2. Right. What will happen on this second day? On one day, first day 1, we have got M into V0. Let's call this as, right. So V1 will get M into V0. Right. V2 will get M into V. Now V1. Right. P will continue to eat Chinese food and 1 will go to Mexican food. And so on. Right. So on day V2, like on day 2, it's like vector, random vector V2 will be M into V1, right? Which I can take this definition of V1 or take this expression of V1, replace over here, we'll get M square V0, right? And so on. On day N, in general, Vn happens to be M raised to N, M into M into M N times into V0. And what we have a sequence V0, M into V0, M square into V0, M cube into V0, and so on. Right. Now the problem out here is, does this process settle down, achieve a steady state, or does this continue to deviate or vary? Right. If this state or this random vector continues to vary, there would be a problem to the owners, Chinese and Mexican restaurant owners, how much they need to prepare, right? And there could be lot of revenue loss, right? So we want to understand whether this sequence has been generated or achieve a state or not. That's the problem in hand, right? And the eigenvalue and eigenvector gives us a solution for this problem.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but
Yeah.
the voice is breaking.
What can
तुटक
be
तुटक
done?
येतोय आवाज, तुटक आवाज.
What
तर
can
तो
be
माईक
done? What can be done? Mic
हातात
is,
जो धरलाय
I'm
ना,
holding mic.
हा
हा.
तो शेक होतोय त्याच्याप्रमाणे फ्लक्च्युएट होतोय.
अच्छा,
त्याला एक
असं आहे का?
स्टेशनरी ठेवून बोला. हा
कुठं स्टेशनरी ठेवायचं ठेवू?
हा सोडून हा
Okay.
हा
Okay.
ओके,
Now,
नो प्रॉब्लेम.
now
ओके,
it
नो
is
प्रॉब्लेम.
fine.
येस येस
Yes,
इट्स
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
let's
sir.
go.
ओके.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the input. Reverse beacon
Yeah.
has come. Thanks.
ओके सर.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, the matter should not become monotonous. So all should listen to
Yeah.
all such conversations so that they are awake. Something is happening.
Yes. I'm muting again.
Yeah. Okay. So thing is, as I said, this problem, this sequence, will it settle down? Right? We want to understand. And the eigenvalue and eigenvectors are going to give us some insight into whether this sequence will settle down or not. Let's understand how and quickly. Right. So this is a diagram. It's a kind of Markov chain, right? And we have two states, and then these are random vectors, and these are fractions which will continue, which will shift, and so on. Right? So thing is, will it achieve a steady state? We want to understand, and then it turns that it will. Right? Let's understand how. Right? For that, we need to understand now. From this example, let's come back to some theoretical aspects of eigenvector and eigenvalues. Right? So let's assume that we have a n by n matrix, right? And lambda 1 to lambda n be eigenvalues of these. I mean n by this. I mean there is a typographic mistake. Eigenvalues of the n by n matrix, right? And lambda 1 is a dominant. I mean here it's corrected. So lambda 1 is dominant eigenvalue of matrix. Right? What is meant by dominant? The absolute value of this lambda 1 is greater than all other lambdas, right? I running from 2 to n, right? So this lambda 1 is referred as dominant eigenvalue of matrix, right? Let's assume that we have this situation and this matrix, which is M, which was represented in previous slide, is called as stochastic matrix, right? Wherein, what is the stochastic matrix? If you try to take the sum of columns over here, what do you get? You get 1, right? The sum of all these columns of such matrices are 1, or of those matrices are 1. Those matrices are referred as stochastic matrices, right? So these are stochastic matrices, and the stochastic matrices are the one where sum of the columns are 1, right? So for these stochastic matrices, for such stochastic matrices, it can be proved. We will not go into details of the proof, right? I'm not, hiding from, it will take time, right? So to save the time, and I can share, there are many references available to see the proof, and the proofs are very simple, right? The thing is, the largest, eigenvalue of such stochastic matrices, I can assume that you can see the mouse. So the largest eigenvalue of such stochastic matrices M, right, is 1. Right? So this dominant eigenvalue of stochastic matrix is 1. From these theorem and two definitions, we can conclude that. Right? And one more important theorem, right? And this theorem is, if A is n by n matrix, right, square matrix with a dominant eigenvalue, then the sequence of vectors given by A V0, A square V0, which was there in our previous problem, approach a multiple of dominant eigenvector now, right? This sequence, whatever the sequence over here, will approach to multiple of dominant eigenvector A, right? That is the theorem, right? And later on we'll briefly prove it. We will not prove this, right? And this slightly, misstatement, but we can assume this for the sake of simplicity, right? So let's accept this theorem and this theorem, right? After accepting this theorem, which is a largest dominant eigenvalue, and this sequence is going to approach to multiple of dominant eigenvector, right? What is the dominant eigenvector? Eigenvector corresponding to dominant eigenvalue. there is one-to-one correspondence between eigenvalue and eigenvector, right? For an eigenvalue, there is an eigenvector, right? And for an eigenvector, there is an eigenvalue, right? So they can have a correlation, right? And I mean, thing is, we are, I mean, taking here a simple situation. Here we will assume that there are distinct eigenvalues, right? Let us consider those, I mean, situations, right? We will not go to difficult situations right in the beginning. So, I mean, for the situation, this is true. Okay. So let's assume that, and I mean, our matrix is stochastic matrix. So matrix M is stochastic matrix. So the dominant eigenvalue is 1. I hope that you are seeing the slide. New slide. Go on to new slide. Is it there? I also experienced that there is some lag. Right?
Yeah, no,
So
it's
I
not.
hope
It is there.
new slide has come.
No.
Some lag is there, but
Yeah. Yeah, some lag is there. I know. I know that there is some lag. Yeah.
yes, sir.
So
Now
is this
it's-
slide appear on your screen?
Yes, it's available now.
Okay, thanks. This communication has to happen. Otherwise, I mean, yes, Anil, you, I mean, from next session onwards, try to do it. Otherwise, speaker is speaking something else and slides are different. That should not happen.
Yeah.
Right? And in, let's say in interactive slides like this, that certainly should not. Right? So please help me, Anil.
Yes.
I'm bothering you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. A number of times I'm going to tell. Thank you.
No issue.
Yeah. So we have a matrix M, which is a stochastic matrix, and its eigenvector, dominant eigenvector, is, let's say, ED, right? And because it is a stochastic matrix, the dominant eigenvalue is 1, right? So thing is, according to previous theorem, this sequence M V0, M square V0, M cube V0 will be multiple, some multiple of ED. At this moment, don't worry about this multiple, right? We will know it, right? The moment we understand eigenvalue decomposition, certainly you can get this multiple, right? At this moment, try to accept this, accept it, right? The thing is, let's assume that Vn, I hope that this has come. So Vn, right? So Vn is some multiple of Kd, right? Some multiple of Ed, which is K into D, where K is some scalar. Has it come?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I hope it is there. Yeah, okay. So now from this Vn, I clicked once again. So from this Vn, right, we have to go to, let's say, next step, n plus first step, right? So Vn plus 1 is m into Vn. We all know this, which is, we know that Vn is k into Ed, so it is, which is m into k into Ed, right? I mean, this m is a matrix, k is a scalar. So I can have this k outside. I can first have matrix into vector multiplication, then scale it, right? So this is k into matrix m into Ed, right? We know that Ed is an eigenvector. So m into Ed is lambda d into Ed, but lambda d is 1, right? So this remains as k into Ed. So from this point onwards, right, whatever you multiply, keep on multiplying these random vectors by this matrix, it will remain to k into Ed. And then system is going to achieve a steady state, right? So we say that system has achieved a steady state, right? So thing is, this is the, after some time step n, the population in the two restaurants becomes constant, right? That is the situation. And then restaurant owner can predict this thing, can understand this theory, or somebody can help them, and then they can prepare the meal, right? And then all are satisfied, right? The thing is, now just for the sake of diversion over here, if this matrix had it been, I mean, other than stochastic matrix, what will happen? What will happen to such sequences? X0, A into X0, A square X0. What will happen to such, I mean, sequences? Let's assume that we have a dominant eigenvector ED of this matrix A, right? So according to the theorem, what will happen is A raised to P into X0 is some multiple of dominant eigenvector, and from this A raised to P plus 1. So once again, multiplying by A, which is A raised to P plus 1 X0 will be A into A raised to P 0 X0, which is K into ED over here. So K into A into ED, which is K into lambda D ED. If we continue for n more steps, right, what will happen is you can, this algebra is very easy. So A raised to P plus n, continuing from time step P, right, for n further time steps. A raised to P plus n, right, into X0 would be K into lambda D raised to n, right, will be multiplied by lambda D often n number of times to this dominant eigenvector, right? So what will happen to this series? This series will, what will happen if dominant eigenvector lambda D is greater than 1, what will happen? Deliberately I'm taking a break. What will happen? You can guess. There is no way you can feed me the result. It is going to explode. Right? If lambda D is less than 1, right, it is going to diminish or vanish. And if it is equal to 1, it's going to achieve a steady state. Right? So this is true for all such systems, right, where next step or the vector in the next state is achieved by multiplying E. Okay? So we can take help of eigenvalues and eigenvectors, and we can really conclude about this evolution x0, ax0, a square x0. So this is one of the utilization of eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Okay? So this is just to motivate you to make you understand and what is the utility of this eigenvalue eigenvector problem. Okay. Now some important things which are required for PCA to understand. We shall quickly go through this. So now this is what Rn I am talking of, is this Rn. I hope that this slide is there. Slide number 13. I am on slide number 13.
Yes, sir.
So I hope that this slide has come to your screen. Right? So a set
Yes,
of
sir, yes.
vectors. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Mahesh. Mahesh.
Yes.
Yeah. So set of vectors. Right. The basis is nothing but a set of vectors. Right. Base is a collection of vectors. Right. So basis, right, for let's say vectors in Rn space. What is this Rn space? All the vectors every element in the vector takes a real value. Okay, so every there was a message from subclass. Set of vectors Rn, right? So thing is yeah. So it is set of vectors, right? Which belongs to space Rn, and what is the basis? The vectors which are linearly independent, they form a basis for this vector space Rn. And what is the basis? The basis is any vector in this space can be generated, can be created by using linear combination of these vectors in the basis. Right? So these are building blocks. Basis happens to be building blocks. So by using these vectors in the basis set, it is possible to create any vector which belongs to space. Right? And how do we know that whether the vectors are linearly independent? This is the condition, right? So this is called as linear combination. Here, I hope that this has come. So here, vectors v1, v2 labels v1, v2, vn are vectors, right? And c1, c2, cn are constants, right? So thing is, this combination, right, yielding to zero vector. This right hand side 0 is a zero vector. Right. So this combination yielding to 0 right, is only for trivial case. This is called as trivial case, where all constants which are getting multiplied in this expression are 0. So for only this condition, we will get this as 0. Right? For no other condition on this, or for no other combination of values of C1 to Cn, we would get this. Right? If this is true, the set is called as linearly independent set. Right? And for such set, right, such set is also referred as basis. Right? So once again, this is simple example, basis for R2 space, the Cartesian coordinate system. So this vector x, which is 1, 0, and vector y, which is 0, 1. Right? What is the combination for which we will get 0? Right? What is combination of A and B for which we'll get 0? Only 0 combination. Right? The thing is, so only C1x and C2x, when do we get 0? Only for C1 equal to 0 and C2 equal to 0. So this x and y is a traditional basis. Right? We keep on studying this right from our school days. Right? So thing is, this is the basis. This is basis for R2 space and any vector in R2 space. I'm not going to read all this. Right? You read it. Right? So whatever to save the time, whatever important to understand. Right? I'm going to express it over here. So thing is, there is nothing sacrosanct about this particular choice. That is, I mean, are they rigid? Should we choose only these as a basis for generation of vectors in this R2 space? Nothing like it. I can generate, I can consider any two arbitrary vectors. Like, I mean, out here, vector, these vector 2 and 3 and vector 5 and 7, which are considered as a basis. So I can take this as a basis, I can take this as an axis, and I can have vector generated in this R2 space, for which I need to solve this system. Right? And this system is system of linear equations. Right? So if I solve this system of linear equations, I'll get x1 and x2 representing A and B in Cartesian coordinate system with basis as 1, 0 and 0, 1. Right? So I need to find this, I need to find x1 and x2, and those are now coordinates, right? New coordinates in the basis 2, 3 and 5, 7. I hope you understood this, and this is a preliminary stuff. So you must be knowing it also, right? So for example, this vector v1 and u1 and u2 are considered, and then I can create any vector z by linear combination of this u1 and u2, right? And this is true for n-dimensional space, right? So if we have vectors in n-dimensional space, right, and all these vectors are linearly independent, I can generate. It is possible to generate any vector in this Rn space. That is very important reason for us, right? And I can have this. I can have this is called as this is linear combination of these n vectors, and I can represent any vector, right, in this n-dimensional space, Rn space, right? So these are u1, u2, and un are vectors. So vectors are represented. Look at the slides. Look at how beautifully slides are created, right? So thing is, these are vectors, right? These are scalars, and I can solve this system, and then I can find out components alpha 1. Knowing this, I mean, whatever original space, I can find out new, combination, new vectors, new coefficients, right? So wherein I need to solve this system, right? And this system can be solved by using Gaussian elimination technique, whose complexity is too high, right? Or I can factorize this matrix and I can solve it to reduce the time complexity. But I can solve this system and I can find out alphas over here. Given z's, I can find out alphas, or knowing, alphas and u's, I can find out z, right? That is the way to think about this, right? Now we are going to add one more important concept over here, right? And that concept is now orthonormal basis, right? So a basis is linearly independent. It's mandatory to have vectors in the basis set as linearly independent vectors, right? Now, on top of this, we have orthonormal basis. And what is orthonormal basis? Orthonormal vectors are these, let's say vector ui and uj are orthogonal vectors. If this is a dot product, ui transpose into uj equal to 0, right? The dot product is equal to 0. Remember that dot product is it's going to result into a scalar value. So this is scalar. So ui transpose into uj is a dot product or inner product where we multiply, the element by element and take addition, right? Which can be very conveniently represented in this fashion, right? So it is ui transpose into uj equal to 0 for all i's not equal to z, right? In this all set of n vectors, right? So if for all i's which are not equal to z, this is true, and this is taking the inner product with itself, ui transpose ui, right? Whose notation is this ui square, so second norm. This is this double line over here is norm of the vector, and norm, this 2 represents norm square. So this is norm square, second norm of vector ui, right, which is 1, right? So if this is true, right, and if these two conditions are true, then, and this is true for all vectors which are present in the set, that set is called as orthonormal basis, right? So once again, if this equation is the same to the earlier equation in the previous slide, so we can write down this equation as, we can represent any z by alphas, right? So this is the same equation where u's are vectors. Now the special condition, vector u's are orthonormal vectors and collection is orthonormal basis, right? So thing is, if I multiply, right, both the sides, right, by ui transpose, that is z is a vector, right? Z is a vector which belongs to Rn, right? So if I multiply vector z, right, by ui transpose, that is if I take dot product, right, I need to take dot product on the right hand side also, right? So alpha 1 into ui transpose u1 transpose 1, and so on up to alpha n u1 transpose un, right? But if I use this condition over here, right, all the terms except this term is going to be 0, right? And what is u1 transpose u1? It is u1 transpose u1 is 1, right? So moment I multiply, I'll get alpha, right? So if I know z and if I know all these vectors, right, I can find out this coefficient by simply multiplying by this, right? Now this in technical terms is called as, if u1 is given, projecting z on u1, right? So this is a taking inner product is projecting z on u1, right? So if I take projection of z on u1, I'll get alpha 1, right? If I take projection of, u2 on, if I take projection of z on u2, I'll get alpha 2 and so on, right? So thing is, if we know z and if we know all these vectors, right, how many multiplications are required to compute alpha 1? We require n multiplications, right? So for every coefficient to compute, we require n multiplications, right? How many such coefficients are there? There are n coefficients. So we require the total time complexity has been reduced to order of n square, right? Which was in earlier case a normal basis, not orthonormal basis, right? Normal in the sense a simple basis, right? So a simple case of linearly independent vectors, the time complexity to get alphas was order of n cube. Now the time complexity is order of n square, right? So why this has been reduced? Only because our set is orthonormal basis. Because of this reason, it got reduced to this, right? And for that matter, this as a diagrammatic representation. So thing is, even we can take help of geometry and assume that this is a vector u1. This, I hope, once again, assumption that you can see this mouse pointer, right? So I'm pointing to this figure over here, and I'm pointing to u1, right? So this u1 and u2, they are orthogonal to each other, right? This is any vector to be represented by this axis, right? And let's say if I want to project this vector z onto u1, right? This is magnitude of z, right? So this is magnitude of vector z, right? So thing is, this magnitude, if I project onto this becomes alpha 1. This is projection of vector z onto u1, right? So projection of vector z onto u1. How do I get alpha 1? Alpha 1 is, obviously you can use trigonometry and find out that this length is whatever magnitude of this into cos theta. So magnitude of z into cos theta, right? So, and the thing is, the geometric way of representing dot product is, what is the geometric way of representing dot product? Z transpose u1 is magnitude of z into magnitude of u into cos theta, right? So I am replacing cos theta by its definition, which is z transpose u1 by magnitude of z and into magnitude of u1, right? So this magnitude, these magnitudes will cancel. Magnitude, the change in this notation, this absolute value is not, it's a double, it's a norm. Norm is the technical term, length of the vector. Length and norm are equivalent, right? So this is length, so I can very well cancel. Length of the vector is always non-zero, right? Length of the vector or norm of the vector would be 0 if all the values in the vector are 0. Right? If the vector is a trivial vector, only in that case the norm is 0. Otherwise, norm is going to be non-zero. So there is perfectly legal to divide by z, and u1 has got norm 1. We already know it, right? So I can cancel this, right? This is norm 1. So alpha 1 is simply z transpose u1, and you will surely get confused. Here the representation is u1 transpose z, and here the representation is z transpose u1. Right. Remember that dot product is commutative, right? So dot product between A and B is equal to dot product between B and A. I can take B transpose A or A transpose B. Both are going to result into same value, right? So don't worry about this. I hope that the message got clear till this. I am now moving to next slide, right? Which is slide number 18. Right? So this is the orthogonal basis. Right. Nothing is, how are they related with eigenvectors? Let's understand. Right. Once again, theorem. I know I am participant of this course also, so I know that there is crosstalk. Right. So thing is, the first theorem is the eigenvectors of matrix A, right, have distinct eigenvalues, right? Having distinct eigenvalues are linearly independent. So we are considering simple case. Think of matrix A, right? This matrix A, all the eigenvalues are distinct, right? So if eigenvalues are distinct, we'll get set of eigenvectors which are linearly independent, right? Assume this, right? Moreover, right, we are now adding conditions, right? So eigenvectors of square symmetric matrix, right? One more condition is added over here, right? What is that condition? Condition is it's a symmetric matrix now. So eigenvectors of square symmetric matrix, very beautiful result, very important result is they are orthogonal, right? And we can have this conveniently as basis for our space, right? The thing is, remember that PCA, right? There's a lot of importance of these eigenvectors, and the matrices which are going to be there are symmetric matrices. How are they symmetric matrices? We'll know it, right? So the thing is, the condition is, consider a symmetric matrix, a square symmetric matrix. Eigenvectors of square symmetric matrix are orthogonal, right? This is a very important result, right? And they form a convenient basis, right? Okay. So next important, still we have not touched to, PCA, right? I'm not in a hurry, right? Whatever things, because these are expressions, right? If I skip it, anyway, it's going to go over it. So the thing is, let it continue, and I have time till, let's say, 1:30. So I think at least one interpretation we shall complete, and then I can show you some demonstration. Right? I'm not going to complete, even though it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, right? Not, there is no point in, let's say, scrolling the slides and then bombarding the information, right? So that is my assumption. So let's understand what is eigenvalue decomposition. Anil, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All are there? Okay. All are there on slide number 20, I hope.
Yeah,
All are there
yeah.
on slide number
Eigenvalue
20?
decomposition. Module 3,
Yeah.
6.3.
Blank slide, only one statement, right? So remember that sometimes, right, while these are mainly mean for our faculties, right? The thing is, adding slides like this also will help.
Yeah, okay.
Right? All the slides need not contain entire information, right? So that is important. That is about slides. Yeah. So see only one line on the slide, right? So thing is, let's assume that we have these eigenvectors and these are the corresponding eigenvalues, right? So consider a matrix U, right? Now think of a matrix U whose columns are now eigenvectors U1 to UN, right? So I concatenated all these eigenvectors and put into a matrix, right? And thus this matrix is generated which contains eigenvectors of matrix A, right? Now this matrix A, right, and multiplied by this matrix A is of size n by n, right? This is the matrix constructed in this manner, right? So A into U happens to be A into U. Now these U's are put in a columns, right? So see how beautifully slides are created, right? So that understanding becomes crystal clear, no confusion, right? So thing is, now this is one of the ways of matrix multiplications. That is, I can take A inside and generate column by column results, right? So this is A into U1, A into U2, and so on, A into UN, right? So this result can be represented like this or can be generated in this fashion, right? This is matrix into vector multiplication, matrix into vector multiplication, and so on, right? So thus I can create, remember that this is n by n matrix, U is n by n matrix, so result is going to be n by n matrix. So these are n results which are getting created. So this is n by n matrix. So this is represented as such kind of multiplication, right? Wherein now we know these are eigenvectors, right? U1 is eigenvector of A, next eigenvector is U2, last eigenvector is UN, right? The thing is, we know the property of eigenvectors, that is they don't change direction. That is the property, right? The thing is, A into U1 is lambda 1 into U1. A into U2 is lambda 2 into U2. What are lambdas? Lambdas are scalars, which are eigenvalues, right? So these are lambda 1 U1, lambda 2 U2, and so on, lambda n UN, right? So this is the matrix that would be generated, and I can conveniently represent this. Look at this animation, right? So I can conveniently represent this multiplication as multiplication of two matrices, right? Remember that, I mean, there's no source, there's a problem of scale. Both the matrices are n by n matrices, right? So this is containing U1 to UN, and this is containing a diagonal matrix containing all eigenvalues, right? There's a problem of scale over here. This is shown bigger, right? This is shown small, but assume that these two matrices are having same dimension, right? So A into U is this multiplication. So obviously, this we recognize as U, this we recognize as capital lambda. This is capital lambda in Greek, right? So A into U is U into lambda. So that is the result we are going to take, right? So this is A into U is U into lambda, right? Where U is collection of all eigenvalues, eigenvectors, and lambda is collection of eigenvalues along the diagonal of this matrix, right? So I can now multiply this above equation. I hope that you are on slide number 23, right? And you are seeing this equation, right? So I can multiply this equation, right, from right by U inverse, right? Similarly, I need to multiply this equation from right by U inverse, right? Moment I multiply from right, this left hand side, right? U into U inverse is, we understand it is I. A into I is A, right? So this becomes left hand side becomes E, right? And then the right hand side is U capital lambda U inverse. This is called as eigenvalue decomposition, So this is eigenvalue decomposition. EVD in short, eigenvalue decomposition. EVD, right? And if I multiply the same equation from the left by U inverse, what do we get is U inverse AU equal to lambda. This is referred as diagonalization of A, right? So this is eigenvalue representation. This is diagonalization of A, right? So thing is, under what condition? I haven't told this. Under what condition U exists? If all the columns of U are linearly independent, obviously the matrix which we have constructed has got rank n, right? And the matrix rank, the rank is nothing but how many rows as well as how many columns are independent, right? How many rows are independent? N are independent, right? We can think of row wise as well as we can think of column wise, right? So how many columns are independent? N columns are independent. So the thing is, in that case, right, if the rank is n, inverse exists, right? So certainly this eigenvalue decomposition is feasible, possible. This is just not on paper. It is feasible. It can be computed, right? So thing is, that is A has n linearly independent eigenvectors, and if A has, so what I said, A has n distinct eigenvalues. Let's start with this, right? A has n distinct eigenvalues, right? Wherein I can take this inverse. Right? So thing is, if now we are moving towards PCA, right? We have covered eigenvalue decomposition, right? For PCA, this is still are easy, right? Much convenient, right? And we know that there is one theorem on slide number 19, right? That is eigenvectors of symmetric matrices are orthogonal, right? So because of this, what happens is this inverse of this matrix U, which we have constructed, is U transpose, right? So inverse of which is proved out here, which is quite easy. U1 into U1, U1 transpose into U1 is, we know that one. But U1 transpose into U2 is 0. All other, dot products are 0, right? So this has been represented over here. Any element in this matrix Q, any IZ element in the matrix Q can be obtained by this dot product of Ui and Uj, right? Which is going to be 0 if I is not equal to Z. Which is going to be 1 if I is equal to Z, right? This is because all these vectors are orthonormal vectors, right? So the thing is, U transpose itself, simply taking transpose of the matrix, we get inverse. That is how things are easy, right? You need not compute A inverse, right? So U transpose is inverse of U, right? So thing is, given a EVD, this is for symmetric matrices. If matrix A is symmetric, we have U sigma U transpose. And then if we have symmetric matrices, right, this, computation becomes, it becomes evident. How it becomes evident? What is A square? A square is U sigma U transpose multiplied by U sigma U transpose. The center U transpose into U is identity. So what do we get? U sigma sigma U transpose. So sigma sigma twice, which is sigma square. So we have come from A square to sigma square. So landed in one more difficulty. We have to take A square. We got 2 sigma square, right? But taking sigma square is very easy. What is sigma square? Just squaring elements, diagonal elements. That is sigma square, right? So this eigenvalue decomposition, right, facilitates generation of this series, right, easily, right? So it's easy facilitation, and the thing is, you can immediately recognize that if this matrix A, right, happens to be a stochastic matrix, right, the eigenvalue, the highest eigenvalue, highest element on the diagonal of this matrix sigma is going to be 1. All other eigenvalues are going to be less than 1, fractional values, And if we take squares, right, and if we continue to do this, if you, raise it n times, if we increase n, the values of fractional, they are going to diminish. Only one value is going to survive, and that value is 1. So only dominant eigenvector is going to survive. All other values are going to be 0. That is how. But the condition is in asymmetric matrix. Then this is true. If it is not, then we need to take inverse, no doubt. Right. Now one more last, prerequisite to understand PCA is this one, right? This is required. So that is how it has come. One important theorem. So think of a square symmetric matrix, which is of size n by n, right? Then the solution to this problem, X transpose AX, is the problem, right? Where X is vector whose norm is 1, right? The condition, right? Vector X having norm 1, any vector having norm 1, right? And if I take this X transpose AX, what is this value? Is this value matrix, square, matrix, vector, or a scalar? This is scalar, right? Remember that A into X is a vector, and once again, vector transpose into vector is a scalar. So this value is a scalar value, right? So maximizing this such that norm of X, vector X is 1, or other problem is minimizing the same, where norm is equal to 1, is given by eigenvector corresponding. Now this is given by this minimization over here is given by eigenvector corresponding to smallest eigenvalue of A, right? And maximization of this is given by largest eigenvalue of A, right? So this gets maximized if we pick a vector which is an eigenvector corresponding to largest value of corresponding to a largest eigenvalue, right? And minimization corresponding to smallest eigenvalue. Excuse me. Right. There is little proof over here, right? In the interest of time, let's keep this proof, right? Understanding this is enough. The last line. So the maximum value is the largest eigenvalue, while minimum value, the maximum value of this X transpose X, X transpose AX is highest or the largest eigenvalue. The minimum value is smallest eigenvalue, right? So once we understand this understanding is enough. Slides are there. The proof is very simple, right? You need to form a Lagrangian and then take the derivative with respect to this X, and then immediately you get AX equal to lambda X. Right? That is the proof. We will skip the proof in the interest of time, and we shall go ahead. Right? So the story. Remember how to once again summarize, get the attention of everybody. Right? Those, at least in this online scenario, right? I know how the things are getting attained. Right? So things are attended. Right? So think this. So the eigenvectors corresponding to different eigenvalues. So once again, the attendees who have gone back and then have joined, for them, right? The eigenvectors corresponding to different eigenvalues are linearly independent, right? The eigenvectors of square symmetric matrix are orthogonal, and eigenvectors of square symmetric matrix thus can form a convenient basis, right? So all this, these three facts are important facts and are required in PCA, right? So I think that we will see one interpretation of PCA and then I will go to demonstration. Is it right, Anil?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes,
Mahesh?
yes. Yes, yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir. We are here.
Continue, Prashant.
Okay, now you are there, but the thing is, even
But
Mohan
again,
is also there.
we have to finish up to 1:30.
Yes, I can finish. I will finish. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, I will have one interpretation of PCA.
Yeah.
I will show one application, and then I'll show the Python code. That is the
Okay,
plan.
sir. Okay, sir.
Dynamically, it is to be changed.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes.
So the story ahead is, we shall see the PCA and many interpretations. I mean, jokingly, the professors keep on telling there are many interpretations, 9 to 10 interpretations, right? All are important. You can, if you have time, interest, you can go through these interpretations. Those interpretations make you understand PCA better. That is my opinion. Right? So consider this data once again. Now we are into PCA, the core job, right? The highlight, right, of this session, right? The thing is, think of such data points, right? Think of two-dimensional data, and these are data points. These are saver. I mean, I think that you are on slide 31. All are on slide 31. Yeah, Mahesh?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So there are many data points, right? Hundreds of data points over here. And these data points are displayed in this Euclidean space, right? So thing is, so what is the convenient basis? Now at this moment we are using, I mean, let's say, the basis are X and Y. So if I want to choose a different basis like this, right? So now think of basis one along this direction and one perpendicular to this, right? So if we take this basis, in order to know the coefficients using this basis, we need to project all these points onto these two axes. Projecting these points onto axis is taking perpendicular from all these points and getting the intercept on this U1, right? So if you do this projection, right, what we'll get is along U1, we'll get a pretty good spread. But if I project these points on U2, right, all these points will be crowded points, right? So you see the projection over here. You are looking at the mouse. So if I project, take the perpendiculars onto U2, all the points will be lying here, right? Will be clustered here, right? So those are the values along U2, but values along U1 are quite spread, right? So that is the scenario that's going to happen, right? And we can treat the values which are clustered over here as noise, and we can ignore, right? There is, because later on these two, I mean, whatever data that is available is going to be used for, let's say, classification, right? So if there is noise, there is nothing that can be taken into account to predict something, to predict a class, right? There is nothing that is discriminative, right? If the variance is large, if there is a lot of variation, we can take those values and discriminate. We can take these points and then discriminate, take those values and discriminate. But if the values are very close, those values are useless values. The thing is, the coefficients along this direction may not be important or may not prove to be important, right, for classification purpose. The thing is, it is possible to now ignore all the coefficients along U2 and take coefficients only along U1 and then go ahead, right? That is precisely, or in brief, what is meant by dimensionality reduction, right? Now, the thing is, given the challenge out here, right? The important thing out here is, given this data point, I have to estimate these directions. That is the challenge, right? So we can convert the data from R2 to R1, right? So this is dimensionality reduction, right? So thing is, U2 will not contribute, as we have expressed this, so we can go ahead. The thing is, in general, it's very important. We are interested in representing. I think you are on slide number 34. I had scrolled the slides, right? All are on slide number 34, right? So we are interested in representing the data using fewer dimensions, such that data has high variance along these dimensions, right? Remember that, I mean, the manpower is required to collect all this data, or, I mean, we have invested heavily in collecting the data, right? So now we got data with us, right? So what is to be done with this data? We should not throw away the information as easily as possible, right? So thing is, I mean, we should consider this data, and then whatever information that is irrelevant, that may not prove to be important, can be thrown away, right? But whatever the crucial information, that should be considered, and that should be used. Right. So in the reduction of dimension, the information that may prove to be important for further tasks like classification, like regression, should be preserved. The information that is not important can be discarded. Right. So thing is, that is the important point in this PCA, and then PCA does this automatically. Or we will see in briefly, we'll see in a couple of minutes how that happens. Right. One more point, one more very important point is, I'm on slide number 35. Right. So one more point, there are three-dimensional data, three random variables x, y, z. Right. And the values are given, some data points are given. Data points are 111.500 and so on. Right. So if you carefully see these two columns, y and z, right, you can see that column z is related to y, correlated. There's heavy correlation. So once I use y, this may not prove to be useful in classification. So I need to throw away such dimensions. The thing is, the z is not going to add any new information. This is the expression for obtaining correlation coefficient, right, which we will not specify at this time. So thing is, this column z can be thrown away, right, because it's a redundant column, right. So thing is, that is the wish list. Let us try to understand the wish list and what PCA does, right. So PCA is going to keep the dimension wherein data has high variance, right, and the dimensions which are, these dimensions are linearly independent, preferably they are orthogonal, right, and all the dimensions which are correlated will be eliminated. So the dimension which are retained are uncorrelated dimensions, right, and PCA is going to achieve this, right. So thing is, let's assume that we have these, the end a result or aim is going to find out these vectors P1 to Pn. We need to find out vector P1 to Pn, the directions, right. So let's assume that we have these vectors with us, which are linearly independent orthonormal vectors, right, and let's capital P be n by n matrix, right, where all these are columns of capital P, right, and let's assume that we have now, these are the data points, right, we have made an effort, invested energy in collecting these data points, right, x1 to xm are data points, m can be any large number, 1 billion, 1 million, whatever, right, all these data points are n-dimensional data points, right, so there are m data points, right, and now we want to transform these data points to the new axis, wherein we can, where all these axes are uncorrelated, right. Nothing is, one of the pre-processing tasks in PCA is we take zero mean and unit variance, we take all the columns and then subtract mean from it, column wise means, and then we scale it by standard deviation, so that the variance of all these columns become 1. So that is one of the requirement. Sometimes this unit variance is not the stringent requirement, we can take only zero mean, but zero mean is important requirement, right. So thing is, now we want to represent, let's say xi is any one of xi from this, right. So we want to represent xi like this, linear combination of vectors P1, P2, P3, Pn, right. Remember that what do we have with us is only xi, right. We don't have alphas, we don't have p's. We want to find out alphas and p's, right. I'm coming up, like last two slides, and then we can take questions, right. So the orthonormal basis, the moment I multiply by this Pj, the moment I take this dot product, I'll get alpha Ij. This is how we can take, get the alpha Ij. This you know it now, right. So thing is, if I multiply, if I take this xi, the dot product of xi with all pi's, right, that can be represented as xi transpose p, right, and then this is original xi and this is the transformed xi, right. So thing is, we are going to multiply the incoming vector by p to transform it to xi cap. The only catch out here is, or only thing that is not available here is p. What is p, right? It is data dependent, and then this, all the vectors, in xi's can be considered together, and then we can have capital X cap equal to I can concatenate all these vectors row wise, and then I can take multiplication, right? So we get transform matrix for the input matrix, right? If we know P, we can transform, right? And how we can transform, right? Now thing is, this X cap also has got zero mean. The proof is there. So take it that if X matrix has zero mean, X cap also has zero mean. Okay? Very simple proof. We will not go through this proof. I'm on slide number 40, right? And I hope that all are on slide number 40. Yeah, Mesh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So thing is, this matrix, this X is zero mean matrix, X transpose X, right? Scaled by 1 by M is a covariance matrix, right? So the first step in covariance matrix PCA is take the covariance matrix or generate the covariance matrix, right? So the first step in PCA, right? We will not prove this in the interest of time, right? And the moment we take this, if we take covariance of this X cap also, right? So that is X cap transpose. So we have taken this XP transpose XP, right? So that we have multiplied by X transpose, X cap transpose, and then scaled by P. So this is simply, putting the definition of X cap over here and taking transpose, right? The moment I do this, this becomes 1 by P, and you know the transpose rule. If matrices are multiplied, X and P, and the result of this multiplication is transposed, the sequence in the transpose is reversed. So the thing is, it is P transpose XP, right? And then we can take M inside, and then we have P transpose 1 by M X transpose X, and this becomes P transpose sigma P, right? So where, each cell, right, of Xi. Now the thing is, remember over here, each cell of Xi, right, is 0 because of this, the vectors over here are orthogonal vectors, right? The thing is, if I is not equal to the covariance matrix of transformed vectors, right, are having 0 covariance, and the variance is there, some variance is there, right? So ideally we want this, right? Ideally PCA does this, that is all the dimensions are uncorrelated, and whatever dimensions which are retained will be having highest variance, right? So the thing is, in other words, we want this to be diagonal, and the thing is, we want this, the left hand side over here, to be diagonal. And what is that gives diagonal? The eigenvalue decomposition, the diagonalization of this covariance matrix is going to result into our wish list, right? So sigma is square matrix and P is orthogonal matrix. So the thing is, which orthogonal matrix maximizes? Obviously eigenvectors, right? So obviously, this matrix diagonalizes obviously the eigenvectors of sigma, right? So I will repeat, right? The thing is, if we have matrix X whose dimensions are M by N, the first step is normalize, right? After normalization, take the covariance of that input data matrix, right? The moment we take variance, take the go for eigenvalue decomposition, right? Moment we have eigenvalue decomposition, we get P, and the moment we get P, we can easily transform, right? So that is what is the first interpretation, right? Yeah. So Mahesh or Anil, how much
Yes, sir.
time I can take? I can explain so that I can show you one demonstration, or we should take question and answer. It's up to you.
So,
Sir, go to demonstration, and meantime we'll collect all the questions and start question and answer
Yes.
session.
Okay. I have kept demonstration ready. So
Yeah.
Okay,
we will
please
not
go ahead.
invest time. So we have this. Yes, sir. Sabka sir, thank you. Right. So this is a Jupyter notebook. Right. Wherein it's a simple notebook. Right. Jupyter notebook is the notebook wherein we can have a backend engine. Right. And out here, I hope that you all are seeing this. First thing.
No,
Yeah.
no. Now it's available.
No? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is the lag. That is why host is important. Yeah. So thing is, we have a Jupyter notebook. I mean, most of you might be knowing, but whenever I first saw the Jupyter notebook, the presenter did not tell, and then we need to search and do whatever. So whatever, in quick manner, whatever I can tell is, this Jupyter, we can create notebook out here, we can have a text, and then we can have a code cells, right? And these code cells accept, there's a backend engine Python. Moment we say run, whatever the text that is written in this notebook will be submitted to backend engine. And the backend engine is going to run it, create the results, and results are embedded in the same notebook, right? The thing is, I would like to show only one demo, and several modules are imported over here, especially modules, which is NumPy and the plotting modules. And then I have a data, right? I have data which has 50 points, right? I have two-dimensional data, right? I have loaded this data from this file, right? And then I have simply plotted. So this is the plot, right? And you can see the extent, right? And you can immediately recognize now variance is much along this direction, variance is much less along this direction. I hope that you are seeing the pointer. Right. Now the code PCA is written, right? Let's understand this code, right? The function which is written, right? So the thing is, this function, right, is going to normalize the incoming vector, right? Remember that this input matrix is passed to this PCA function, right? So this function over here, this function inside, there is one more function defined. Python allows it, right? This function becomes a local function, right? And this function is going to normalize the matrix M. So the mean is computed and subtracted from all the columns. These two instructions are responsible for that, right? And the sigma is computed and all the columns are normalized, right? So these four instructions, simple instructions, right? This is mean, this is standard API, standard deviation. API, you can those for critical analyzers. There is one this DDoF. Look into this. DDoF is delta degrees of freedom. It is written as 1. So if somebody asks, we can explain. So the thing is, after normalization, the covariance matrix is computed, right? Remember matrix. The first step is normalize covariance matrix, which is X transpose X, and this result is divided by M. Right, so the covariance matrix is obtained like this, and then we go for singular value decomposition. The singular value decomposition, right, is same matrix symmetric, right? Quote marks in the matrix, right? Singular value decomposition and eigenvalue decomposition, right? There are advantages of going for singular value decomposition. Singular value decomposition is more stable, right? So it is always better to go for singular value decomposition, and then it's going to return matrix U, which happens to be collection of eigenvectors, the eigenvalues or singular values, and then the matrix of singular vectors. And these singular vectors and eigenvectors for symmetric matrices in case of SVD are same, right? And then we have plotted here. Let's not go through. Very simple plot. This function is called. CF function is called. All the values are captured, and right. I will give you reference for this. The code is available online on GitHub. I will give reference. You can download the code and you can execute at your end. Right. So these vectors or the directions are plotted. This is one direction, other direction. You can see that this direction is long. Why long? The eigenvalue is 1.70. Right. And the direction is minus 0.7, minus 0.7. So this is the direction. And the other direction is minus 0.7 and plus 0.7. Right. And the eigenvalue is very small. That's why length of this axis is very small. That manner to understand, to make you understand these two directions. Remember that the moment we get eigenvectors, right, we automatically get directions. Once directions are obtained, we can project the on the directions, and we have our PCA, right? So thing is, I will. This is the projected data, and we'll see the recovered data. is this is the data which is recovered. I mean, all these red hollow, circles is recovered data. It's possible to go back to original, access. So this is the data which is recovered, and you can see all
Still
the
the
dotted
screen is
lines.
not available. No. Screen is not available.
Okay. Now.
No.
Let me know.
No. It's not available. It's the code only. The graph is not at all.
Will come. Is it there?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, I'll go up and then come down. Is it there? Now.
No. Still. Just go down again.
Tell me. I'm okay.
Yeah, it's now available. Yeah, the
This
plot
is
is
available,
available.
right?
Plot is available. Yeah. Oh.
Plot is available. Where you can see
Yeah.
dotted lines, right?
Yeah,
Out.
right.
Line number 55.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now thing is, these red hollow circles are the circles which are recovered. And blue circles, blue filled circles is the original data. Right. So if we consider only one dimension, you can see that this is the projection on this dimension. Right? And this is the error. Right. And I am going to one more plot. One more plot is there. Line number 51. One more plot.
Yeah. It's available.
Yeah, where you can see that both these blue and red circles are overlaid on each other. Here, when I consider both the axes, the reconstruction error is 0. Right. So if I consider all the dimensions which are obtained by using PCA, and if I consider all the coefficients in the reconstruction, the transformation from original axis to this new axis and then back is lost. That is what I wanted to. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the organizers and Professor Sabkar. One of our friends, when I met him in some of the conference of the workshops, is Dr. Kapre, right? Hello, Kapre sir. Yeah. So thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening this session. Thank you, sir. Is he there? Can I see him? Dr. Kapre? Yeah, thank you.
Attendees can't be seen.
Okay.
Only panelists can be visible.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, organizers.
Thank you very much, sir.
And are
We'll
there any
take few questions. Yeah.
Yes,
Definitely.
certainly. Yeah.
My doubt is for PCA again, data standardization is required.
Yeah.
That seems to be a drawback associated.
Not really. It's not. Very complex operation. The thing is,
If the
why
data standardization is not done, the variance scale may be huge. And if the variance scale is huge,
so one axis may
loadings
dominate
will be also
because
high.
of dynamic range. Yes. So thing is, the first step, like for images, you need not go. See, as I said, you need to subtract the mean. All the columns. Right now, here the terminology is. I haven't uttered. All these columns are considered as random variables, and we have got all these realizations. Right, and what may happen is the dynamic range of these random variables can be different. Right. So first step that I need to do is I need to subtract mean and then normalize by standard deviation. That's the first step. Very important. In case of images, all the value, the dynamic range is same from 0 to 255. Right. So in case of images, only subtracting mean is enough. We need not go for normalization by standard deviation. Right. That is an excuse. Thing is, I will quickly show the result. You can see this. The checkbox of this faces, and these are eigen faces. There's no time, exceeded time, and teachers. Do that, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah.
Sir, next question.
Supriya.
Yes, sir. Supriya, sir. What are the limitations of PCA, sir? What are the limitations?
So you need to obtain covariance and think of images, right? Where dimensions are like 10,000. If the image size is very huge, dimensions are very huge, and the covariance matrix becomes very huge, right? And in that case, right, you may not, it's very difficult to compute all the eigenvectors and then collect it and then go for PCA, right? So one more way is go for SVD, and then we have nowadays, we have this MATLAB or LAPACK and so on, which can compute SVD very, very efficiently, right? So because of this availability of these platforms and because of singular value decomposition and because of inherent stability involved in singular value decomposition, as such you can take any matrix, you can take singular value decomposition, and you can go ahead with your PCA.
Okay, sir. Next one is how PCA is used in case of nonlinear data.
Non-linear data. Non-linear data in what sense? Data is data, right? It's a collection of random variables. See, forget about non-linear. We have random variables, features as random variables. Forget about non-linearity. So those are random variables, and we have got realizations of random variables. The data point that we collect is those realizations, right? This is a statistical pattern recognition terminology. So we can think of this, and then we can go for PCA. Forget about non-linearity, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you. How to apply PCA on ECG signal?
On ECG signal. Now, thing is, this ECG signal, there are multiple leads, there are 12 leads or 10 leads and so on. It's a multi-dimensional data, right? You can concatenate all, you can take those ECG signals, get into a matrix, and then go for PCA. Take, let's say, finite size ECGA, take into matrix, and go for PCA. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Then how to calculate the eigenvalue of individual variables?
Yeah. Now, the thing is, we as a teacher, faculty, right? Thing is, we can ask these questions in examinations like, we given 2 by 2 matrix, 3 by 3 matrix, or up to 4 by 4 matrix, right? Find out eigenvalues and eigenvectors, right? Now, the way to find out for these smaller dimensions, right? You need to generate characteristic polynomial, and then roots of characteristic polynomial are eigenvalues, and moment eigenvalues are available, right? We can get eigenvectors which are in null spaces of this matrix, right? The thing is, for us, for faculty members, to ask to the students to compute eigenvalues and eigenvectors is an easy task. But whenever matrix dimension goes beyond 5 by 5 or 6 by 6, and now we are talking about matrix dimensions like 10K by 10K, right? Where we should not rely on pen and paper method to compute eigenvalues. We should use tools, right? The power series method, the many methods, numerical methods to compute eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Right? So go for that.
Okay, thank you, sir. A very nice explanation given by you. Now I request to Professor Amruta Moite ma'am to give a vote of thanks.
Yes, madam.
Prashant, very good. Prashant, very good.
Good afternoon all. Good afternoon all.
Go ahead.
On behalf of
तीच लिंक आहे दिवसभरासाठी एकच लिंक आहे ती आलेली आहे ना.
Hello.
नाही आली का?
Hello.
पॅनेलिस्ट म्हणून.
Please continue, Mohit ma'am. Please continue.
Good afternoon all. On behalf of entire team of Signal Image and Video Processing, a Practical Approach 2020, I would like to thank Honorable Dr. Prashant sir. Your years of research, we all become very much familiar to eigenvalues, eigenvectors, orthogonal as well as the principal component analysis and its application. One more thing, that is Jupyter notebook. As you said, it is a miracle notebook. So whatever data
join and even if काही जरी असेल तर I will make you panelist. Join झाल्या I will make you panelist. आणि
Hello?
हो. म्हणजे याच्यामध्ये पॅनलिस्ट म्हणून जॉईन झाला ना की I will make you presenter in WebEx.
Whatever data
you are a presenter, you can share your screen, your program, everything can be shared.
Wait. Yeah. Please.
So thank you very much, sir, for your
टेस्टिंग करायचं असेल तर जॉईन होऊन मी आहेच आहे. सध्याचं एक अजून आधीच चाललंय बरोटेक्की सरांचं. ते झालं इमिजिएटली पण
कारवानकर सर म्यूट करा तिकडे.
You can
ओके
join.
कारवणकर सर तिकडे म्यूट करा.
Oh, sorry. Next.
ठीक आहे.